second class. Life will take you to different places. But whatever you do, always try as much as possible to be resilient. If there is anything you should take away, and that's, I think, for me, what I will do with you today, aside from the law, so everything you've done in the field, especially the community events that you did, nothing at a community event goes according to plan, but you must conduct it, and that's partly why we do that, to give you an insight into what the community is, but also to let you learn how to solve problems. Our biggest, I think, gift here at Barefoot Law is problem solving. We're not perfect at it, but it's a skill that we try to. But you'll need problem solving skills to be resilient. So if there's anything you've taken, it's be resilient. Learn how to solve problems that will improve on your resilience, but also be human as you're doing it. Go back to law school. The first people you should bash are those that are letting the law get to their head. You see, don't be like them. I think they're on the wrong track, and they'll only realize it later. So don't go back and be like your classmates. If I hear any of you speaking Latin words to a client, then you've lost the plot. You're not a product of Barefoot Law. You see, Precious these days can't even speak in public. When she came here, she was like you, I think 2 years ago. But now I think there is something we probably taught her. And I hope you've all got a chance to interact with her, because she's a product of this system. The rest of us, we came in differently. Some of us were picked from the streets, but we found ourselves here. But you guys, the products of BFR, today the king has died. That should be a lesson to your unpredictability of life. You will need to be resilient to be able to overcome this life. The ball has struck, we are still here. So if there's anything you should take away from this experience, for me, that I give you, is the value of resilience and preparation, regardless of what the future holds. I hope that is clear. And I hope we see it in your presentations, but I hope we also meet you in future, wherever you are, could be a fellow in here. And I hope we see a difference in you, because the team that you see here sacrificed. No one is paying us to do this to you, you understand? But this is what we need, not only as a legal profession, but as a country. So people have sacrificed. I've seen the work that goes on in the back end. People have sacrificed. They've come for your outreaches. At some places, interns are complaining about lunch and internet, but here people are coming for your outreaches. You've gotten data, but you're going to fail at that with interest in the way you forward this to people you deal with in future. So don't disappoint us. We understand. We spoke about identity. I hope you remember that conversation wherever you are, wherever you go, because the you that has finished these 3 months is different from the you that started. And I hope you value those lessons. Otherwise, you will be such a disappointment, not only to us, but to the country. And I hope you've all role models here as well. That's something I think the country lacks. Role models. There's a lack of role models. Honestly, like our generation, me, I don't think we have role models we can look up to and be proud. We are individuals, but collectively, looking at them as role models is a bit of a challenge. So I hope you've seen role models here, and I hope that helps you with your resilience. You understand? So I think on that bombshell, I will end here for now, but I know we're going to interact. Thanks for this. It's also a learning experience for us as Barefoot Law. Apart from the new terms you guys teach us, what's the latest word that Jen is? She's our resident Jen. What's it? Is it log? So we also have great, but now I use clock it a lot. So thanks for what you've taught us. And I also thank you for this, because this also gives us an understanding of what the trending issues are. Of course, we see it in the systems, but there are always lessons. I remember I remember the last time No, this is not the iPod. I will just focus thinking from I remember the last time what we learned was the need in urban areas, which I think is even more than the need in rural areas. So that was one thing we learned from last year's future ideas, and I look forward to see what we're learning from this and how we will help to improve the approach going forward. But also relax.
Yeah.
You know, you're not in school, by the way. Has anyone bited you when you came here? I want to be beaten because they're like when you took corporal punishment. So relax. This is your day. Good food is coming. And I hope you've selected mentors because you will definitely need mentors in your journey to the rehabilitation. But whatever you do, don't disappoint us. Don't disappoint us. One will be highly disappointed if you don't use what you've learned here to make this place a better place. I think on that bombshell, I'll end there for the second time. And I will, of course, keep interacting. We look forward to your presentations and what you have for us. And yeah, enjoy. It's your day. And congratulations on making it this fun. Have finished. It's not easy. It's not easy. So yeah, thanks. And I'll hand it back to the MC. It's a conference, not a thing.
Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Gerald, for those three. I always enjoy Gerald's remarks during these conferences, and I actually remember some of them. And I'm not only saying this because he can fire me, but I do genuinely enjoy them. So thank you, Gerald, and thank you for using simple English. I'm sure you've heard the word resilience before, you know what it means. So, yeah. Before we proceed, I would like to kind of give you a background on how this conference was organized. When we were trying to choose an MC, the main qualities we considered were intellect, humor, and all the good things, right? However, the person we selected fell sick today, so you have me instead. So relax. If I'm not a good MC, I apologize in advance. I'm sure the interns are like, that guy was asking us hard questions. He's not been a good MC. Anyway, we'll go next to the next part of the program, where we'll have one of the people who was really working hard to get this moving, Talamoy. Give us the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making that time. My name is Esther Talamoy. Have been leading the internship fellowship program, the Barefoot Summer Fellowship. As a beneficiary of mentorship, have been mentored from very young. I wanted to be a lawyer because I thought someone I knew had a lot of money. Because growing up, I was, I think, in primary school, and each time she would come around, she would bring me new clothes, she'd give me money. When you call from school, so I wanted to be a lawyer because I thought she had money. But then when I joined campus, I wanted to be a social worker because I didn't want to go to court, I didn't want to do all of that. But I was mentored through this and throughout my career and legal journey, I have worked in legal aid because I enjoy teaching non-lawyers, I enjoy doing mediations, but that's because I've been mentored. So when COVID happened, when the internship program happened and Isaac asked me to work under Winnie, I enjoyed it. She mentored me a bit. Well, then here I am this year leading the program. I wasn't sure I wanted to lead it. And when COVID Ebola happened and they asked us, should we continue? I'm like, no, because I was scared, I was hesitant. I could pass on a scale, but have benefited from mentorship, from internship, and I thought it was important. So what I've learned from the interns throughout this Barefoot Summer Fellowship is resilience, is their communication, and they're able to adapt. When we had our first outreach with Rachel, we had a few challenges, but Rachel was quick. Oh, you're late, I've gone to the ground, I've done this, I've done this. Good communication, Pearl as well, because we were like, okay, it's okay, Ebola has happened, if you can't do this, but she said, I really need to do this. Elsie entered into office on Tuesday, and Wednesday she organized our very first outreach in Nigeria. So when we told her, oh, we want 2 extra weeks, are you able to do this? She's like, yes, but I have exams. And I asked her, how are we going to do this? She said, let me share my timetable. Let's work around that. Joy had exams from Monday last week to Wednesday, but she has been able to work through and she's here. So I really appreciate making that time. And to that team, I think each one of you has supported this program in different ways. There's not been a minute I'm like, Emma, help me with this, IT with this, the Lego team particularly. Thank you for that time, the extra work for being available. To Gerald.
Because the white man says, send a thief to catch a thief, which is why we are bringing Precious to introduce the, the fellows. Precious, please come.
I think in this case, all right. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all again, and I really congratulate the fellows for making it to this day. Like they told you, I was once like you. Yeah, and I thank God that you have gone through this, and I'm sure you have learned so much from these people, from everyone around. Yeah. And we really appreciate you, Gerald, for always organizing the fellowship, and people get to learn more beyond just the law. Because if it's about the law, then I really I knew the law. I understood this. If you tell me which act, I'll give you the act, I'll give you the section. But again, what we learn from this is beyond just the law, but the people you interact with, how you handle situations, resilience, and how to go through everything as a human instead of doing so as just a lawyer. Yes. So my duty here is really, really so simple to welcome the fellows and let you know that they are going to be starting. Yeah. So today we have 3 fellows. They are all ladies, yes. I'm going to introduce them one by one. So yes, I'll start with Pearl. Do you want to start? Yes, her name is Pearl Katondrachi. She just recently graduated from Cavendish University with a Bachelor's of Laws. It's nice to see you, and it has been good interacting with you throughout the program. Yeah. The second person is Akelo Rachel Nyeko. Rachel has just recently graduated from the Law Development Center. Yes, so I can confirm that we sat in the same tents. Yes, it's good to have you, Rachel, and we can't wait to hear from you what your future idea is. Yes. The third person is Namiro Joyroy. Joyroy is a 4th year law student at Kampala International University. I think that's why you've heard that she has been doing exams throughout this week. Yeah, we are so excited to hear from you and learn from you as well and see what we can do better as a team, because like Gerald said, we never stop learning. Yeah. So I don't know whether it is within my duty to also welcome the first presenter or it is the MC's duty.
I'll do it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you the one?
While the rest of the other speakers kept coming up and giving their remarks, I realized they hadn't told you my name. My name is Daniel. I'll be your MC this morning and early afternoon. What's the program say? So this is not going to be one of the presentations we are having, right? Is it?
Cheers.
See, I was testing to see if you are aware. The best thing about lawyers is they can explain everything. The difficult part is getting them to do it under an hour. So I wish you luck, Miss Falka Tonbachi.
Good morning. My name is Paul Katondachi. I am a recent graduate from Cavendish University, Uganda, with a Bachelor of Laws, and I've been part of the Barefoot Law Summer Fellowship for the past 3 months. As part of the fellowship, we are required to choose a topic of interest, write an article on it, and make a presentation on the same. And that is why I'm going to be presenting today. But before I start with the presentation, I'd like to give a scenario. There is a gentleman called Stephen. He is from Sudan. He had to leave Sudan because of the ongoing conflict. He enters into Uganda and he is settled in a refugee settlement called Nachivale. Stephen is registered as a refugee, given an identity card, and he is also given land to be able to grow crops and to sell some for an extra income. He is able to build a life and to sustain his family.
Okay, I found this on the web for Stephen. Is a refugee given an identity card, and it is all people.
On the other hand, there is Jacob. He's also a refugee from Sudan. He arrives into Uganda, but for him, he goes to Kampala, not to Nachivale settlement. Jacob is a qualified dentist. He actually has a master's in dentistry. But instead of helping people with their dental health, he is instead found cleaning a hospital. Yet he is qualified. The law provides that both these kinds of refugees are entitled to employment opportunities. But what is on ground is actually different. That scenario is the inspiration of this topic right here. How Uganda's refugee laws have effectively promoted urban refugee access to employment opportunities. And in the course of my research, I focused on the refugees in Wakiso district, specifically Nigeria 1, where I live. Before we go any further, I'd like to define who a refugee is. A refugee is any individual who has been forced to flee their country as a result of fear of persecution or any act of aggression or any act generally that disturbs public order. That is who a refugee is. Just like I gave an example of Stephen and Jacob. It is important to note also that one does not immediately become a refugee when they enter into the country. They must first be recognized as one and given an identity card. According to my research, I found out that there are 2 categories of refugees in Uganda. There are those that live in settlements. You can consider Stephen under that category. The refugee settlements in Uganda include Nachivale, Bidibidi, and Ajumani settlements, among others. On the other hand, there are urban refugees. These usually reside in government-designated urban areas, mainly in Wakiso, Kampala, and Mukono districts. So you may ask yourself, why are we even discussing about urban refugee access to employment opportunities today? And there are some facts that will interest you as to why we should actually consider this as a point of discussion. Number 1, Uganda hosts the largest number of refugees in Africa. And by March 2025, they were recorded to be 1.8 million refugees. 8.5 of these reside in the urban areas. This makes up 4% of our total population in Uganda. And what does this mean? This means that if urban refugees, who make up 8.5 of the total refugees in Uganda, are able to easily access employment opportunities, it will increase the tax base of Uganda as a country, and it will also reduce the tax burdens of each one of us we keep hearing people complaining that taxes have increased on various in various areas. But imagine if refugees could easily access employment, they would be taxed as well, maybe through pay as you earn or any other kind of tax. That means the tax burden on each one of us would reduce, and the tax base of Uganda as a country would increase instead. Also, also, there would be an increase in the human capital, in various professions, lawyers, doctors, engineers. According to a research of the Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council, there is only one qualified doctor for over 6,400 patients, and that is as of 2026. So we find that there is a skills gap in Uganda. Some of these refugees that come into the country are already qualified, like the dentist I mentioned. They have their degrees in medicine. They're able to engage in these, they're able to provide human capital for the country. But usually when they get here, they are disqualified on the basis of being refugees, which is not right. And lastly, better urban refugee access to employment reduces the rate of crime rate, the crime rate as a result of them being unemployed. We have heard of areas like Katwe, which by the way hosts a good number of refugees, being one that has so many crimes happening. People are being hit with iron bars, and you may find that refugees actually make up some of these criminals. So them accessing employment opportunities easily enables us to deal away with that. It also shifts them from dependence on humanitarian aid by the government to those that are actively engaged in the country's economy. The country wouldn't want to keep on providing humanitarian aid to people who have hands, who have skills and can work and be able to earn an income. And now I will go through the Uganda's refugee legal framework. This is categorized into three kinds. Firstly, we have international refugee laws. Secondly, we have regional refugee laws and national refugee laws. Under the international refugee laws, we have the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1967 Protocol relating to the status of refugees. Under the regional refugee laws, we have the OAU Convention governing specific aspects of refugee problems. Now, it is important to note that these international and regional laws have all been ratified in Uganda, and that is why we consider them to be part of Uganda's refugee laws. And then our own national refugee laws include the Constitution of Uganda, the Refugees Act of 2006, and the Refugee Regulations of 2010. The laws I've just gone through all have provisions that are directed towards urban refugee involvement in employment opportunities, or their right to involve in employment opportunities. For example, the Constitution of Uganda provides that all people are equal under the law and they should be equally protected by the law. That includes refugees because it does not explicitly state that these people it refers to are only Ugandans. Secondly, the 1951 Refugee Convention, it provides that Ugandans have a refugees have a right to engage in self-employment, wage-earning employment, or liberal professions. Thirdly, the Refugees Act of 2006, it provides that refugees are entitled to all the rights provided for under the international and regional conventions, and that includes the right to engage in gainful employment. And lastly, the Refugee Regulations of 2010, they provide that all refugees that are registered and have identity cards should be given the opportunity to engage in gainful employment. And now we want to see if these laws or these provisions have actually been implemented towards promoting urban refugee access to employment opportunities. Well, unfortunately, they have to a greater extent not been implemented. Uganda's commendable open-door refugee policy has mainly helped those in settlements. You remember the story of Stephen that I gave? He arrived in Nachi Valley settlement, he was given land, and is able to sustain his family by that. As we can see in that picture over there, the refugees in settlements are given pieces of land to help them sustain their families. However, the urban refugees that end up in Kampala or Wakiso or Mukono, they are not entitled to these essentials such as land. Most of them are usually educated and qualified, but they are unable to get employment that would help them sustain their lives, just like the ones in the settlements are able to. And what does that mean? Whereas Uganda's refugee policy has saved lives, it is now time for it to promote livelihoods, especially among those in the urban centers, the urban refugees. So now I would like to go through the challenges that are actually faced by these urban refugees in pursuit for employment, so that we don't think it's just an assumption. Firstly, there is difficulty in them being registered under certain professions. I'll give an example of a refugee family that I interviewed during my research. They used to live in Sudan, but they came into Uganda 2 years ago, and that is because of the conflict in Sudan. This family has one educated daughter. She studied dentistry while they were in Sudan, but then she was unable to do an internship while there. So in between, the conflict happens, and then they come this side, and she does her internship from this side. After her internship, she expected to register as a dentist, just like all other Ugandans that study dentistry. When her and 28 other medical students, still from Sudan, went to the Uganda Medical and Dental Practitioners Council to be registered, someone at the council asked these students to pay over 1.4 million Ugandan shillings in order to be registered. And yet, Ugandan nationals who are being registered for the same pay only 100,000 Ugandan shillings. I think we can see the gap that's there. They were being asked to pay an amount that is absurd, and yet the policies of the council does not even provide in any way that refugees are required to pay this specific amount. But simply because they were refugees, they saw them as those that should pay a higher amount to be registered as medical practitioners. When I had a further conversation with the mother in this particular refugee home, she told me that the rest of the family members really earn a low income, and they're even unable to pay for their daughter that amount. So she's still in that quagmire. She does not know what to do. The second difficulty is delays in refugees getting essential documents that are sometimes required by employers. This includes LC1 letters as well as driver's licenses. For the case of driver's licenses, I talked to 2 other refugee gentlemen, still from Sudan, and they told me that in order for some of them to get driver's licenses, they are asked to pay some money, and even after they have paid the money, these driver's licenses take quite a while for them to get them. So this causes a delay in that they are unable to get some jobs that require them to have driver's licenses. The third challenge is uncertainty on the requirement of having work permits before refugees are employed. Most employers require refugees to give them work permits or to show them their work permits before they give them jobs. However, Uganda's refugee laws do not explicitly state that refugees have to have work permits before they are employed. So there is sort of a gap in there that they do not know whether they actually need the work permits or if they do not. And lastly, there is discrimination of urban refugees in some communities, including discrimination by employers. If I may ask a question, if you are an employer and you had a Ugandan, you had an option of a Ugandan to hire and an option of a Somali. He's qualified. His English is not that good because in their country they study their language. Then there is this Ugandan. He's less qualified, but his English is good. He can do the basics. Who would you hire? I think most people here would hire the Ugandan, right? Because you feel like it's going to be easy for you to go about, communicating with them and all of that. But refugees are actually really disturbed by this. They are qualified. Yes, they have some inadequacies, but it's also important to note that these are people who are traumatized. They probably ran from their country, left their property, left their businesses, but they also hope to have a future while here in Uganda. So those are some of the challenges they face. Next. And as I almost conclude, these are my future ideas, or my future idea as to how these problems can be solved. I broke this down according to the specific offices or individuals that can help to provide assistance. And firstly, under the Office of the Prime Minister, which is the office that heads the Refugee Response Plan in Uganda, firstly, there can be more sensitization of urban communities, especially those where refugees reside most, about their rights. And this sensitization can be done even virtually, let's say on the news, but since today less and less people watch news, most people are on social media, this information could be posted on various social media platforms. TikTok is there. Instead of people watching, information that does not really build them up, they could be educated on some of the rights of refugees so that they understand that refugees also have the rights that Ugandan nationals have, because most times it's really a knowledge gap. The second is ensuring job placement support for refugees. This can be through affirmative action measures, firstly. We have seen that when some jobs are advertised, sometimes women are called upon or encouraged to apply, right? So this can also be done for the refugees. And also providing recommendations to refugees in order for them to obtain certain jobs. But also, the Office of the Prime Minister can be assisted by other organizations, such as non-profit organizations like Barefoot Law. I believe that given that Barefoot Law already provides legal advice, it could also provide sensitization regarding refugee rights to these urban communities. Next is the Parliament of Uganda, which makes the laws. We know that there are laws that govern refugees, and they also provide for their right to employment. However, there is some uncertainty that could be revised. For example, for the issue of work permits, there are no specific provisions, for example, in the Refugees Act or the refugee regulations that provide that they should have work permits. So that could be revisited and revised. And also, within these laws, there can be provisions that ensure, let's say, that provide penalties for organizations that charge absurd amounts to refugees in order to, register them under certain professions. Like the example that I gave, where future medical practitioners were denied the right to register because they do not have 1.4 million Ugandan shillings. And lastly, for the employers would consider promoting job readiness among refugees. For example, after the affirmative action measures have been taken, refugees have been encouraged to apply for certain jobs. And then they come, they have the qualifications, but their language lacks a bit because throughout their curriculum, they probably studied in Arabic. They could be encouraged to take on certain language courses. This could also be done virtually as well. And they can also be given soft skill training. As I mentioned earlier, these refugees are usually traumatized. You could probably find him there standing, and then when you tap on him, they react a certain way. Why? Because they have that fear in them. They became refugees in just a snap. They didn't expect it. So there should be some empathy given to them, and they should be rather trained instead of being totally disqualified on the basis of, you do not have the soft skills, you don't know the language. Yes, so those are the recommendations under the employers, the group of the employers. And in conclusion, well, you may say that Ugandans already have their own challenges in getting work, but how about refugees are given a chance to rightly compete for the same jobs with Ugandan nationals? We are blessed to live in a country like Uganda where we have not had conflict for a while. But imagine if conflict resurfaced in Uganda today. What are the odds that any of us could become refugees? And I'm sure that if any of us ended up as a refugee in another country, would like to still build our careers and have a sustainable livelihood, right? So these refugees in Uganda, specifically in the urban areas, they have the same desire and they should not be denied the opportunity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Pal. Please don't sit down yet because there's going to be a Q&A session. So something I didn't mention before your presentation was that I studied with someone called Katondwachi. But I couldn't mention it before because I didn't know how it was going to be, but you've done well. So good job. We'll open the floor up for questions and answers. No, questions, and then she will give the answers. Can we have another mic? So any questions? Any questions?
Thank you so much, Paul, for your presentation. I think when I was doing my research, but though I was focusing on the Congolese refugees in Katwe, there are some organizations there. I think one is called Yarid, something like that. So they call these refugees, then teach them maybe like, how do you write a CV? How can you apply for a job? And the basics like in the English language. Then after calling them and giving them those skills and then they write CVs, the same Yarid places them at a certain workplace. So most of the time they would place them at a workplace, of course a Ugandan workplace. Then after like 3 weeks, the employer called again saying, you know what? The person you sent us isolates the rest of the employers. Okay, the rest of the employees doesn't want to cooperate, is rude. And when you talk to the women, because I was focusing on women, you will tell that this person is not necessarily maybe bad-mannered or has something wrong with them, but they have that emotional toil on them that makes them feel like that even when I settle in this workplace, I don't feel like I belong, and it would like affect their manners still, or what the way they behave at work. Do you think there should be something that should be done before, because it's one thing to place you at a workplace, but it's another thing to change your mindset and make sure that you deliver. What do you think about that?
Okay, thank you for the question. In one of the recommendations I gave under the employers, I mentioned that they could be trained in soft skills, but now in answering your question, that could also be broadened up to counseling for the refugees, and this can be done most likely by the NGOs, that focus on providing humanitarian support. Yes. So beyond the job readiness, beyond the language training, counseling sessions could also be provided to these refugees. And this doesn't have to really be physical because they're scattered across various urban areas. So this could be virtual, links could be shared for them to register under certain trainings where they can be counseled as well. So that they gather together and they're, counseled through this to tell them, yes, you ended up as a refugee, but your life does not have to end there. You have a future, you have a destiny, and you can start up from here.
So do you think this should be a prerequisite even before you get your ID?
I don't think so, because as I stated, Uganda hosts already quite a large number of refugees. So Uganda's system firstly recognizes, or rather determines first, should we actually take in this person as a refugee? Because when they enter into the country, they are firstly asylum seekers before they're registered as refugees. You may find that some of them are acting to be in that state of needing help, but when they are not. So I think that they should firstly determine if they should actually be given the refugee status, given the IDs. Those who are not supposed to are told, you know what, please, we are only taking in this one. Then they can cancel this
If
one.
they get their IDs from the office of the Prime Minister,
Yeah.
don't you think maybe it should be the one actually supposed to do that? Because maybe civil society can be also told, just do this. But maybe let's take an example of Barefoot Law. It is not Barefoot Law's work at the moment. Just an example, to offer counseling to refugees. You get? So, like, who should be primarily responsible?
Okay. Primarily, yes, like you said, it should be the office of the Prime Minister, but also organizations can come in to help. For example, when the refugees enter into the country, they're usually in large numbers. So the OPM usually calls upon, besides the UNHCR, it calls upon other humanitarian organizations to come in. So it cannot do it on its own. Otherwise, it will be so much to handle. Yeah.
You come after Shivan, because I saw her at first.
Thank you, Paul. I think your presentation was interesting. I think I might have missed this, but I have a question regarding your scope. Why urban refugees? What is very special about them? And this employment issue, for example, is it something that's affecting just the urban refugees? Also, what is this again is just to hear your mind. What's wrong with someone becoming a farmer if they were taught to be a doctor? So if they came to Uganda, for example, and the opportunities that Uganda was offering them for agriculture, and the point is for them to have sustainable living, is that something that they would be, that you think is workable for them? I just want to understand scope, and if you've considered that certain situations require a shift in trajectory.
Okay, thank you for the question. Firstly, why urban refugees? Well, I think I mentioned it earlier in the presentation that the usual system of Uganda in receiving refugees is that they come in, they're registered, given identity cards, and then settled within the refugee settlements. However, there is quite a lot that goes on within the settlements. There's usually congestion. Maybe okay, he's busy. The picture that I had added where they live in camps and they're kind of really congested. So sometimes the government of Uganda designates urban areas where these other people that cannot reside in the settlements can go to. And among these, not all of them, but among them are the qualified ones. So again, when they go to the urban areas, they are not given, you know, the entitlements that the ones in the settlements have, the land and everything. They're expected to, usually they're expected to just do it on their own, find a way of maintaining themselves. And I don't think it's the intention of the government, but it's just the resources that are not enough. So because of that, because they do not have the land, even though they could farm, if they remain in the settlements, they're just not able to when they get here. So given that the government of Uganda has put in measures to ensure that the majority who are in the settlements are easily able to grow crops, sell some, have a livelihood, most of the attention has been given to the ones in the settlements, and the ones in the urban areas seem to be left out. So that is why I really focused on that. And also, according to research, it shows that whereas Ugandans are generally having an unemployment problem, refugees within urban areas tend to be more, the percentage of unemployment of those kinds of refugees tends to be more than the average Ugandan national. Yes, I don't know if I've answered all the questions, but
Just a question on trajectory. So you're educated as a doctor in Somalia. Unfortunately, there is war that has broken out, and you're forced to come to Uganda. And the system, as it is, possibly either is not flexible or has a lot of hoops for you to go through. Is there a possibility for a change in trajectory? Because we've also seen some refugees become, a lot of them actually become businessmen, open shops, and go on to be very successful. And yet their formal training is in something different. So, what are your thoughts on the possibility of that maybe being more structured, or the possibility of that being more structured to offer more opportunities for people who could come to Uganda and just decide for a change of trajectory?
Okay, I think I understand it better. So yes, there are refugees that go into the urban areas, start up businesses, and they're really successful. But according to my thought, I think that should not limit them if they actually want to go ahead and practice in what they studied. For example, if I'm looking for an example to give, that they should not be disqualified from being doctors or lawyers, yet nothing is really hindering them, but simply the basis of them being refugees. Yes, they can start up their businesses, they can do all of this, but why am I not allowed as a refugee? Let's say I'm a refugee, why am I not allowed to register as a dentist simply because I'm a refugee and I'm being asked a lot of money? So yes, I can start up the business, but what if I want to do both things at the same time? So I think that limitation is what's really the problem. Yeah.
Hello, Paul. Very well done. I think you are very clear on your topic and what you wanted to present. My question is me trying to understand the place of the refugee identification cards. What then, and this is me coming from, I think you've done research on it, so I think you'll know a bit more about the purpose and the mind behind why they have those refugee identification cards. So when a person is given the refugee ID and they get it, does that offer them some kind of distinction from a foreign person, a foreign person who comes into work here in Uganda? Do they then get some kind of benefit that they have that refugee ID or not? And if so, because the example that you gave, the person was required to pay, I think, 1.4 million. So is that because they are a foreigner, or is that because they are a refugee? Or if it's because they are a foreigner, then what is the purpose under the Ugandan legal system, or currently in this ecosystem that we're living in? What then is the benefit of having that refugee ID at all? What, apart from it being an ID, is there anything else from it? Yeah, what's my question?
Okay, thank you for the question. And in response, firstly, I think the first question was on what's the use of the identity card. So yes, the identity card really differentiates them from the Ugandan citizens, so that if I may go back to the example that I gave of the dentist applying, that was after her internship. But let's say she had tried to apply before the internship. This council, the Uganda Dental and Medical Practitioners Council, actually differentiates the cost that's supposed to be paid by a refugee and a Ugandan. That's before the internship, before they're actually going to be registered as a medical practitioner, just to be registered as one who has completed school. That is where the difference is drawn. And in such a case, the refugee is required to pay $100 and the Ugandan is required to pay 50,000 shillings. But now when after the internship, they're all coming simply to register as dentists to start working and practicing in the field, the amount they're supposed to pay there is uniform. It's not differentiated. So the identity card in that sense would work earlier if they have just finished school and they are registering the first time. That's when they would differentiate, and that's when they would have to show their identity card. that, look, I'm actually a refugee. That's when they would have to pay a different amount. But now when they're paying the second time, it's uniform. So the challenge here is that they were being charged way more money, yet they had, yet the price is supposed to be uniform. So yes, the identity card does differentiate between.
Is that then corruption from the people in the medical field, or is it something that is in law or?
No, it's not.
So would
Yes.
foreigners have to be required to pay that exact same amount of money like the Ugandans?
Well, according to the policy of that specific council for medical practitioners, they only specify refugees. Yeah, they don't talk about the foreigners.
Hi, thank you so much for your submission. Having listened to what you've said, I wonder if it's or to build your recommendations an accreditation sort of program, because even us as Ugandans, when we go to the US, to the whatever, we are required to go through a certain level of accreditation where our qualifications are sort of matched to the other organizations or to the international or to that country's education level, for example. And even we see that, for example, with our friends, I had a friend from Rwanda who came and tried to study here, and they were required to sort of have a form of standardization. I don't know what the name is, but you sort of have to match the educational qualifications of that person to the current or to the country's educational standards. And sometimes you find it's lower, sometimes you find it is higher, and the like. So I feel like a form of accreditation for refugees who are coming into the country to sort of set the standard of where they fall or what additional steps they need to take. Because for most people who go to work outside, it becomes that much easier for them, especially when they have certain qualifications. It becomes easier for them because they know this is the level I'm at, and these are the specific requirements I need to sort of work more. But I think that is a shortcoming on our system, and because we're not utilizing that, we are letting go of very good talent which we would otherwise utilize. But maybe you could hear from, you could add from your experience.
Okay. Regarding the accreditation, well, I had not really looked so much into that during my research. I was looking at those that are actually already in the working age or that are already supposed to be working, but yes, I'll surely consider that under the recommendation. Thank you.
Precious, you had a question, but we only give you the mic once. The second question you asked without the mic.
I'd actually left the question, but my issue is when you check the refugee laws, the wording of the right to employment is you are supposed to be accredited the same right to employment like other immigrants in the country. So if it's to do with maybe the medical board and how much they charge, did you look at how other immigrants are maybe charged to be allowed at the council?
Well, I did not really look into that. I only talked to this person. She told me that her, together with 28 other refugees from Sudan, were charged that amount. Right.
Right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Carl, for the presentation and answering the questions. At this moment, we're supposed to be having breakfast, but everyone voted not to have breakfast today. Anyway, I just need to confirm if the breakfast is ready, and this would be a nice point to kind of cut it off. Just continue. Okay. So we'll have brunch, I think. We'll give breakfast and lunch. The next presentation is going to be by one of our fellows. I'll reserve my comments for after.
Thank you, MC. Good morning.
Good morning once again. My name is Akelo Rachel Nyeko, a recent graduate from Law Development Center, Uganda. I've been doing my 3-month fellowship with Barefoot Law Uganda. It was a very good privilege on my side. I was so grateful for that. And I was so interested in the fellowship, mainly because of mediation. It excited me so much. I hadn't seen the practical bit of it. I'd mostly seen it in theory, but seeing it as part of what I was going to do in my fellowship, I was so excited for it, and it's what really motivated me to finish the fellowship. And it's what has also pushed me to talk about my topic today, since as part of the fellowship, one of our main tasks was to get a topic of your choice and write something about it, an article, and give your feeling on it. And so it brought me to my topic, a personal perspective on how mediation can escalate conflicts. Like I said, it's going to be from the lessons I've learned from participating in legal consultations and mediations in the law boxes, mainly Paicho and Pole. So before I even talk about anything, let's first look at what mediation is. Mediation is a process in which a neutral third party helps parties to a conflict to reach a mutually agreed resolution. The mediator, he was, let me say, they were mainly the lawyer of Barefoot Law Uganda, hoped these parties to conflict in the law boxes to get to the solutions and solve their conflicts. And during the mediation, they were clearly told, everyone who entered mediation was told, by the way, this is not court, there's no judge here, be free, be open. So mediation is not a court, there's no judge, and there's no winner, and there's no leader. Because in court, when you go to court, you start writing your draft your document to go with your lawyer, you're going to, now it's a survival for the fittest, may the best lawyer win. One has to come up, one has to go down. But in mediation, it wasn't that, it's a win-win situation. And then, so that's a mistake. I was so excited for mediation because I'd seen in court there has to be a winner and there's a loser. And then I was like, oh, in mediation, there's actually not that. But then I realized mediation is actually not a magic bullet. It does not solve all issues. So, the laws that were mainly used during mediation at the boxes, the Judicature mediation rules 2013, the Judicature rules for court and its mediation 2026. Then there was case law. This was mainly used to explain like similar situations so that people get and are more comfortable. Then also I'll use case examples of the Barefoot Law boxes. So what I saw during this mediation session, actually from legal consultation to the mediation session, is what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about one, when people come into this, like actually from the legal consultation, yes, the first person is going to come and give their idea. Then they'll be like, oh, this issue can actually be mediated. We're going to call the other people. So when the people usually come in, it can be that very same day mediation is going to take place. They're going to get solutions, sign an agreement. They're done, they go back home. It was actually so fast. The resolutions were so fast. Then there was, most families would come and they had like serious issues that have not been talking for 3 months. They're quarreling, they're not been listening to each other. We sit down, talk in the mediation, they go back home with a solution, they reconcile, and that relationship is restored. Then in the law boxes, it's unlike the community mediation where you maybe sit under a tree or you go to the LC1's compound and everyone, even the neighbors, are looking at you, people talk or shout. Because during mediation, I've seen people actually do shout. They can even point at each other. No, you did this, you lied. But in the law box, it was confidential. It was mostly. when a person comes for the legal consultation, they're asked, who would you want to attend this mediation? Which people would you want us to call? And those are the only people that come for the mediation. So it was really confidential. And then it was free of charge. When the people come, even during the legal consultations, they're told, oh, everything here is actually free by the way. We're not going to charge you. So don't think since, oh, outside there, lawyers charge a lot, and now you're scared, no, here, you're going to be charged. Then other interesting things that I saw, I think this was the first week I did my mediation. There was some case that was unresolved. I remember Friday when they were asking us how the week was, that was the highlight of my week, because a couple came in, she had some issues when her husband was called. I'll call him B. When B came in, tried to mediate the issue, but there was no solution at the end of the day. So they went back, and I also realized, that's when I realized that when cases are unresolved, follow-up now will work. Then there were disagreements. This family comes in, the son actually first brought the issue for, he came to consult. It was a land issue. They didn't want him to take the land, but the land was actually given to him. So the family comes in and they were really arguing. At some point, even the mediator first kept quiet and let them talk for some long time, because now no one was listening to the other. They were just disagreeing and arguing among themselves. What I learned with all this mediation is so powerful. It has, so glad very many people would come back, other people would be like, oh, there's this family, because most times they come back with the LC1, and it's the same LC1 that handled the land issue. So you see that mediation has actually solved these issues, but there are some cases, there are some two cases that really excited me and changed my perspective, and I saw that mediation is actually not a magic bullet. Sometimes it's going to escalate conflict. Like the lady who came in, Lady A, she came in, it was issue of child maintenance. So when her husband came in, B came in, B was actually the LC1 also of that area. So he came in for mediation, and we tried to talk and tell them, oh, as a parent, you have responsibilities. Kids also have their rights that you have to take care of them. It's a responsibility of both of you. And then he was like, yes, we have talked, but even if we talk, there's nothing I can do, even if we go back home. And then they asked him, even 2,000, you cannot give your A and the kids for food. Was like, no, even if we go back home, I have no money. So that issue actually escalated. The second issue was also on land. That family, the boy that brought the issue, his family came in. There were actually three, but let me talk about this. The family came in. He was fighting his father on the land, and now for mediation, he came with his sisters and his father. So we told the girls that, in family land, you guys also have your rights. We educated them on their rights. So when they went back home, the girls also now started a fight. Okay, now we also want part of this land. We also want this. So that issue actually escalated. So I learned that mediation can actually escalate conflict. And yes, it does not always work. There's always an underlying issue. This case, the lady comes in, she came with her child, she's heavily pregnant, she has 2 kids. My husband has not been providing and is the LC1. I really have nowhere to go and take this issue. I've come to Barefoot Law to help me. So the husband comes in, he's in a rush. It was during that time of politics where people are picking the nomination forms. It was like, first of all, I'm in a rush, I have to go pick the nomination forms. This woman has brought me here, so what are we going to talk about? And we tell him, as a parent, you have a responsibility to your kids and you also have to take care of your wife. He was like, yes, I know, but I have nothing to give. There is no money. Even if we go back home, there's nothing I can do. So they go back home, the issue escalated. He really didn't like the idea of her bringing it to Barefoot Law because he felt like it was going to threaten his political aspirations. So when they came back inside, we realized there was more to that story. Yes, it was quoted as child maintenance, but there were two other underlying issues inside. He claimed he was a businessman. He actually had money, two wives who were doing so well, but he wasn't providing for her because to him she wasn't respecting him enough. And she says, why would I respect you if you're not providing? And then there was also another issue of HIV in there. So the issue had actually escalated because of the mediation, but there was just an underlying issue that was not handled during the mediation. So secondly, creating awareness. This one, yes, it's actually so good that during the mediation sessions, people are taught on the law and their rights, but we are all humans. It's hard to change, like Gerard said. When Ebola came in, they wanted to remove the fellowship thing. When these people come, because this family that came, the boy was fighting his father for the land, and he didn't think his sisters were even important in that, because they know the land is going to, from my father, it will come to me. So we told them, no, the girls actually, the law is equal. All these girls also have a right to that land. And it was hard for them to accept. Yes, it was agreed from the mediation that you can't sell this land, it's family land and all that. But when they went back home, it was hard for him to accept this idea. Now I was only fighting my father. Now I have 3 sisters I'm going to fight. Became a whole other issue. That conflict escalated. Then some agreements are rushed. There are very many mediations that would happen during the week, and a legal consultation would happen today. Tomorrow you have the mediation. It starts at 2 or 2:30 before it's done. So now this particular case of the couple that was rushed, he was also in a hurry. He had to go get his nomination forms for the LC1 thing. She also had to go to hospital to do the scan. Yeah. So she was in a rush, and it wasn't resolved. So he was like, okay, I'm also not going to provide, even if we go back home, we have no money. So it was agreed that you're a parent, you have a responsibility to take care of your kids, and your wife, sign here, you have to, you have to provide. So it was really rushed. And when they went back home, that case indeed escalated. Then secondly, everyone lies. We're all humans. We all lie. We all want to be the heroes in our own stories. So these people who come into the law boxes for mediation, obviously the first person who came in, you come with your own idea, your own story that you want to sell, and you're going to make sure this story goes on. You've created it from home, you come, you maintain it. During the mediation, maybe legal consultation, you tell a different story, and during mediation, they're given time to talk again. You can see it's inconsistent. But then when you ask them, even the other party, when now you start confronting them, because you could tell from their eyes, and the mediators would also realize, we could realize they're lying. You tell them you're lying, so now they get defensive. Now don't want to solve the issue. Okay, let's go back home. This can even be handled home, like the family on the land issue. They were like, let's actually go back home. This issue was not supposed to be here in the first place. So they went back home, it escalated. And it frustrates the mediation, because now if you're lying and you're not open, there's obviously not going to be any solution. Then the empathy trap or bias. All humans have that humanity in them. So this particular case, this lady walked in, she was heavily pregnant, I think 6-7 months. She looked so bad. The kid was in a very bad state. She was crying. She actually broke down. Her legal consultation took a very long time because she was crying. So you already know in society how women are treated by the men. So now this man comes in, now you have the victim. The man comes in, he was so aggressive. He was actually smart. And even one of the people at the law box were like, I'm shocked your wife and kid look like this for someone that looks like this. So he was already aggressive. He didn't want to listen. He just felt like the mediator was wasting his time. I'm a very respectable person. People are going to see me entering barefoot law boxes. You people are frustrating me. I want to go get my thing. So you as the mediator, you've already seen a victim, and you're now seeing the aggressor act in this kind of way. So it obviously creates that in your head, you're now in that empathy trap unknowingly. You now see that this person is obviously the aggressor. So you just rush to solutions. Like in that case, just got the solution. No, you have to provide. You're a father, you're a husband, you have to provide for your family. So yeah, the solution was good, but that issue actually escalated. And then we don't always follow up. In that case, because immediately she came, thank God she actually came back, but after the first mediation session, we agreed that it will be a constant follow-up to see if he's going to keep on providing, because he was saying our business is not good, but then business is not going to be bad every day. So we're hoping that next week he will start providing. But I did not see that, so there was no follow-up there. Mediation, like I said, is still very powerful and we cannot do away with it. We still need it, but there are certain things that need to be, I think, like tightened a bit. So in my opinion, the review period, this one mostly to give people time to cool off. Now, like, you've come into the mediation at 2 p.m. You've been for like maybe 1.5 hours, you've been pointing at yourselves quarreling. Because the issue of the land, the father and his uncles kept on saying, you're even lying, this boy is lying, he does not respect us. Let us go back home and solve this issue, because I know it was going to be very bad at home, because they were kind of aggressive. But at the end of the day, when they were signing that, you could see they were not happy. The boy did not really look so happy. Yes, he gave up the land, but he didn't look that happy. So giving people like time to cool off, to give them time to come maybe sign another day, because these are your family members. You'll have that, there's that hidden love down there, even if you're pissed at them. So if you go sleep it off, you can come back the next day or maybe after a week with a like a calmer version, and you can even apologize. Oh, last time I was actually so aggressive, and maybe I gave you guys a smaller portion of the land. You can actually use maybe an acre, not half. So that would help. Then community buy-in. Most of these people, when they walk in, especially the families that come in, they are used to the family head, the clan leader, and the LC1 maybe at some point handling their issues. Now you've brought in a third party. It's good to involve them in this mediation before. You could maybe talk to them before, so they don't come into the mediation with bias also, actually. Because some of them still had that bias that that issue of the land, the family head and the clan leader still felt like that land was for the boys, since they feel like it's mostly boys who should handle the land. So if you bring them in to be more receptive, even the people in society, by the time they're coming for mediation, they don't fear boxes, because some people don't want to be seen entering the law boxes. Then follow up after mediation. Because there are very many mediations that happen in a week, it could be hard for the mediator to personally follow up all the people at the law boxes, because they would also really be busy, like I would see. So it's now that you've brought the LC1 in, the clan leaders, the family heads, you could use them. These LC1 people also want the society to love them a certain way so they come back next time. Involve them in following up these cases, the clan leaders, the family heads. You can tell them that there's this case so that they can follow up on that case, and they can also bring follow-up back. The organization already uses IT a lot in accessing justice. So these same LC1s or family heads can just call back and talk directly to the council or the people at the law box and tell them about the case. Let me first handle counseling and referrals. Like I say, this woman and her husband, they had underlying issues before the mediation. Yes, one mediation was handled, the issue escalated, they had to come back. It also gets tiring handling the same issue every time. But if you handle the deep issues inside, because they had the issue of HIV, that part of respect, they just needed some counseling. And there are actually very many organizations that give also free counseling, but mostly in these ones I've seen in government hospitals, and most villages now or towns have health centers. So these people can first be counseled. So by the time they come for mediation, it's now just not a fight. They have come with they are more calm. They are now like, whatever was eating them up down is now off, and they can openly share their ideas and welcome the mediation. Then the multiple sessions, like there are some issues that, especially land issues, like this issue that came in of the boy that brought the issue. He wanted the land, and his father and uncles didn't want him to use that land, though the land was actually left to him. Some of these issues would actually need 1 or 2 sessions, not maybe just from 2 to 4, because also council needs to go back home. They're also, oh, we have to go to the garden. The old man kept on saying, we have to go to the garden. The boy also had what other things he had to do. And they were actually because they kept on saying, he's lying, he doesn't respect us. But if they go back home and come back after certain sessions, they can sit it off, cool down, and then come back and handle the issue better. Then and also those cases, it would be better if because in a case where you see everyone is lying and no one wants to talk, instead of rushing the solution, and you feel you can also physically be there. Then in the case of privacy, yes, I've seen certain cases where the person brings an issue and is taken to a private room and all that. But still, before some of these mediations, especially these ones that families have come with land issues, it's better to first talk to them privately, even the person who brought that issue, so that when they come for mediation, they're not pointing eyes, because they kept on saying, why did you bring the issue here? We could actually go handle the issue at home. You brought in other people to know our family problems. So yeah, you can first have some private meetings with them before the mediation. And in conclusion, I would still say mediation is a very powerful tool that needs to be carried on for generations, just like it was before us. Mediation has always been there, it will always be there. But just like me and everyone out there, some of us who thought mediation was a magic bullet that solves all problems, it also does not solve all problems. But if handled well and certain things are done better, it's one of the most powerful forms of handling conflicts and disputes. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The comments I reserved were, my sister is actually called Akelo. Do you follow twins? Oh, okay. You were just named after someone called Akelo. It's different, huh? Okay. So you represented the name well. Well done and good job. We'll go into the Q&A session straight away. And we have our first Q&A.
Hi, Rachel. Very well done. I am your first Q&A. Yeah, I think this was so refreshing for me. To have our work critiqued from an outside perspective, I think is very good for us. We have always prided ourselves as we are doing mediation. The Barefoot Law Boxers are doing amazing work, but it's always good to see areas in which we can improve. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for choosing mediation and specifically the Barefoot Law Boxers. My question may be on your future ideas. The first is on the review process. So you had talked about us having, suggesting that maybe have people go and sleep on it, then they come back and sign. Now, I'm sure you've seen the people that come to the boxes. Even you can just see those amazing ladies in our picture. Some of these people come from extremely far. Transport is an issue. To even have them come to the law box, some of them will tell you, maybe give me up to 2 because they have to walk. They start walking from 6 a.m. to reach the law box. Now, if we are going to give them that kind of come back tomorrow, or come back in a week, or come back, having them continuously come to the Barefoot Law box. Sometimes you find someone gets tired and says, no, I'm not going to go. So you find that we'll be like, okay, let's try to, by the time you leave, you have at least signed your agreement. How would you suggest that we do that? If you want us to tell them, come back tomorrow, you're seeing that grandmother there, you're telling her, now you first go and sleep on it, then you come tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe you have an opinion that could help us. The second is with regard to the follow-up. So I know maybe Sandy and the rest of the team have follow-up every 3 months or so, where we call and we find out how are things going, how is this going, just to make sure that the mediation is successful and they're living peacefully as community. So do you suggest that we should, okay, this is now me thinking out of what you've presented, should we be having maybe a category of cases where we are saying if, if a lawyer looks through the case and is saying, perhaps this one, follow-up may have to be done next week, given how people were in the room, how they were reacting. Maybe that gentleman looked like he was not fully sold on the idea of child maintenance. And if so, what then would that criteria look like? I think it would help us because follow-up has, I think, been either done monthly or every quarterly, something like that. So maybe give us suggestions on how to improve, because follow-up I know is done, but perhaps it's not effective. So help us maybe on your suggestions on how we can improve that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let me start on the issue of follow-up. You see, like I say, trying to buy the community in. Yes, the council is going to come after 3 months and talk about that. But these family heads, the LC ones and the clan leaders, they want a lot of peace in their society. And it's not like they have a lot on their plates. Because actually during the mediation sessions, you'd have like one LC one return consecutively, and who even now knew their names and knew their faces. So you could also train them and give them this mandate. I'm sure they would welcome it. You just tell them in your society, a lot of land cases have been coming up, and this family has had this issue for some good time. Maybe you follow up and find out so that in case maybe they need more counseling or mediation, they can also inform the council before the follow-up period comes. Yeah. Then on the first issue about the time, you see, court sessions usually take years or what, and mediation, it has been so fast for people, and I know it's hard for them to come, but also you're not supposed to just rush it because now you need a solution. They can come this week on Monday, Friday, give them some time maybe to rest. On Friday, they can still come back, and you conclude and sign that. It would bring more resolutions where people have come back with a more open mind and are more forgiving, because sometimes actually these family cases, they come like this, it's so heated. You can see how like a father and son are going very deep emotions going on. You're insulting your father, so I imagine you've insulted your dad at 2 p.m. and at 4 you're now back. So deep down you still have that resentment. But if like maybe on Friday you come back, yes, it's going to be hard, but these are family members and they want peace. Because even when they come back, they want to get back into talking terms. So I'm sure they'll be more open to that.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi, thank you for this. I see, what you've discussed is something very crucial, and it talks to the quality of the work that we do and how to sort of enhance this for marginalized communities across, especially those that use the mediation aspect at the Barefoot Law boxes. I don't want to add to what you've said. I just want to appreciate it, and that what you've actually brought up speaks to something different. And if you have seen it, then probably somebody else will see the same thing. And if you have seen it, means that probably somebody else will see the same thing. and we start by learning, and we will take these with a grain. We will take them, and where they fall short, we will implement them. In some instances, coming up with what we call a panacea, one size fits all solution may be difficult, and it may not actually be the solution. So the element of adaptive management on a case-by-case basis would need to come in, but we will see how to apply some very nice recommendations you brought in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can see the jokes have reduced and the questions have reduced. It means people are hungry, but food is on its way. A question?
You said the jokes had reduced. I'm just saying that when you guys need me to take to the next slide, just wink at me.
Good job. I'm proud of you, Jesse. Okay, I think that's it. So, before we have our breakfast, I see it's here. I want you all to first stand up. Audience participation. I actually hate audience participation, but as the person doing it, it's quite fun. So stretch like. As you go down Okay, I didn't plan that exercise routine for you, but yeah, that's it. I think we'll take a pause at this juncture. Have breakfast very quickly in 25 minutes, so by midday we resume. Okay? Okay. Last but not least, as we wait for the team to switch on the projector, I hope you're also eating in your last bites. I realized the presenter decided not to eat, so maybe she'll eat after. But sometimes you're supposed to eat before you do something.
Everyone, sorry.
No, 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 no. Mandatory stretching. All right, Miss Joy Roy.
Everyone, my name is Daniel Joy, and I'm a fourth year law student at Kampala University. For the past 3 months, I've been part of the Barefoot Summer Fellowship. And one of the requirements which were given was to make research and write an article about this research. Well, the topic of my article is the reality of slavery for Uganda's informal sector. Uganda's informal sector comprises of businesses and jobs with no formal registration or government registration. This includes people like border riders. For example, a border rider who is given a border by their boss to ride it, but on condition that they must bring back 100K per day. A household, although I know that the new amendment of the Employment Act provided for the domestic workers. The new amendments of the 2026 Amendment Acts of the Employment Act accommodate for the domestic workers. However, a lot of our people do not know this. The informal sector further includes people like hairdressers who are paid according to the number of heads they've plaited a day, and shop attendants who are given 10K to provide for their transport, lunch, and daily savings. You would then ask yourself, why am I not talking to the border riders that I'm speaking about? And why am I telling this to you who is in her office? But these people are more than 80% of our country's workforce, which means that these people do not know their rights. Their instability is your insecurity and your tax burden, which means that anything that bothers them is later going to come and bother you as well. For example, you are a worker, you earn your wage very well, and you know your legal right. You're going to build your home,
and you're going to live a comfortable life. But as for them, they're living they're being cheated, their earnings are being cheated, and they are being pushed on the wall, and they do not know where to turn. What are they going to do in return? They're going to do this crime. They're going to hit you with a paper. Let me tell you one personal story. So I think last year, around July, my phone was stolen. I was leaving hostel in the night, like at 8. I wanted to withdraw some money on my phone. And I found someone who grabbed my hand and he showed me a knife. He was like, bring it. You guys, I don't know how to explain what I faced that day, but I got a panic attack. Yes. So after 2 weeks, after this robbery, this same guy was caught in our area trying to rob another phone. But the story that was going around was this guy was a boda boda rider, and his boss actually removed his boda boda from him, and it was given to a relative. So he did not have any other job left other than robbing. That's why he had resorted to robbing. So as I was doing my research, I talked to a lady called Grace. Grace was working with Nalongo since 2021, and she was earning 50,000 shillings. And she was really okay with this because she didn't know any better. So in 2026, at the beginning of 2026, she broke a vase as she was cleaning the house. And apparently, Nalongo told her that this vase cost 250,000 shillings. And she was just on spot. And Nalongo father told her that I'm going to compensate your 5 months earning in order to replace this vase. So Grace was only 17 years old. She didn't know where to go. She just went back to Impigi to go back to her family. But then there are laws that really should protect Grace. For example, the Employment Act, which provides that oral and written contracts are equally binding. But for a person like Grace, there was no contract at all. And she did not know that, yes, even though the contract was not written down, the things that I've been doing during my course of employment show that I had a contract with Nalongo. The Occupational Safety and Health Act, which provides for safe working conditions for people, mandatory personal protective equipment, and regular health checks. But I may ask a question. How many of you guys have housemaid? You? Esther, have you ever taken your housemaid to the doctor to check her health?
Yes.
Are you serious? That's nice. But a lot of people do not do this, honestly. A lot of people do not do this. And then the Workers' Compensation Act, which gives the employers a duty to compensate workers for any injury arising out of their course of employment. Back to you, Esther. In case your maid burnt herself while trying to cook water for you, what would you do?
Take her to the hospital and give her some.
Okay, maybe you're a nice person anyway, but a lot of people do not do this. That's the fact. The only thing they will do is to chase them out of the house. Get another maid who has no injuries. Then the Labor Dispute Act, which gives us mechanisms for dispute resolution, like reporting to the labor officer who has the duty to mediate these disputes and conciliate the employer and employee, and the industrial court, where the labor officer can refer this dispute to them in case it has failed to be resolved. Thanks. So we've seen the law and we know they are actually protected. But what is actually on the ground? No written proof of contract. You know, a contract, the contract shows the scope of the relationship between the employee and their worker. So if something is not written in a contract, there is no way this housemaid is going to come and say, Madam, you really had to do this to me. You really had to do this for me. Because it was not written down. Poor working conditions. A lot of these people do not, they are emotionally harassed. I can give you an example. However, I don't want to be judged. So I have an auntie who has a housemaid, but this girl is only 16 years old. But the way she's treated is something else. She's not let to sit on the dining table with the rest of the people. She does not eat the same food as the rest of the family. She cannot actually play with the kids. However, she's expected to cook the food that she's not going to eat the meat, she's not going to eat, and then she'll eat the beans. Yeah, arbitrary dismissal. Like the example of Grace. Yes, she was told that, I'm going to fire you because you broke the vase. But she was not given notice of money. Like she was not compensated that money she was supposed to be given in the very first place. No protective personal equipment. For example, in that very picture we are seeing, that person is carrying bricks on his head with no gloves, with nothing to protect his head in case of an injury. That shows what is really happening on the ground for our informal sector workers and registered workplaces. You know, the Occupational Safety and Health Act provides that all workplaces must be registered by the inspector. So the inspector will come to this place and inspect it in case of anything to know that place is really up to the standards that are provided for in the act. But a lot of these places are not registered. So these people cannot run to the inspector or anything because the inspector will be like, I do not know that place, so why are you coming to me? Injured workers are abandoned. Back to you, Esther. So, what is your maid's name?
She's called Rachel.
Okay, let's say Rachel. Okay, what if Rachel burnt herself, but then, okay, she really burnt her arm and she cannot execute her duties for like 3 months? Would you really keep her?
I think it's because I need someone to help with work. I'll have someone else come in and give her a break while paying her because I know better I'm an employee, so I know better the kind of treatment I would need my employer to give me when I'm sick. So most of the law provides for that. So yes, I'm doing it because I know better and probably I'm able to do better.
That's nice of you. But this is not the thing that we are seeing. A lot of these people get injured. And trust me, a person who wants her job to be done, her duties to be done at home, that person is not going to keep the girl in the home. Instead, she'll go to her village or wherever they get the housemates from and get another girl who is going to be able to mop her house, cook her food, and all of that. The harassment, let me talk about sexual harassment in this case. A lot of these people are being harassed by their bosses and they cannot report because they know once they report, who is actually going to believe that a lawyer who is 40 years old left his wife, who is beautiful as she is, and went after a 16-year-old who is illiterate, who does not know English, who actually looks, ashy. No one is going to believe that. That is why they do keep quiet and suffer with all this, which makes them actually get diseases and then become pregnant and all of that. Next. Yes, so we've seen that we do have the law, but something else is happening in reality. So these are the reasons as to why something else is happening in reality: ignorance. A lot of people do not know what the law says. That's the fact. Yes, I might say that domestic workers are now full employees, just like the rest of the people in the country. But people do not know that. Your house girl does not know that. Esther, does your house girl know that? Yes, they do not know that. Actually, they know nothing that even though I've been working for Esther for 6 years and we have no written contract, I'm still her employee. They do not know that. Traditional trade unions ignore informal workers. We know a lot of trade unions, for example, UNATU, the medical associations, medical practitioners trade union, but I've really never seen a trade union that is for house helps or hairdressers or, okay, I know one of boda riders, but it's really for all those people in the transport sector, not just boda riders. Yeah, so since they do not have a collective power to go against where they are being pushed by their bosses, it is really it is really difficult to enforce their right. Daily wage earners can't afford to lose time. There are people, like for example, the hairdresser I've talked about, who is paid daily according to the heads of people she has plated. Even if this person has a dispute with their employer, she cannot go to the labor officer and spend a day waiting for this guy to actually work on her and leave her duty where she would have been paid, let's say, 100, that's a lot. Let's say 50K per day. That is really impossible. And remember, the Act, the Dispute Resolution Act, gives the labor officer 4 weeks to react on the dispute that has been brought on his table. But this person is not going to come, he's not going to move from Seguku to the district labor officer to enforce their rights because they do not have the time. And remember, time is money, so they cannot do this. Fear of retaliation. Like, for example, I talked about the harassment. These girls who are raped, they cannot go ahead and report. Let me tell you about a TikTok video that I saw. This girl was brought from the village and she came to work for a couple, yes. So the man of the house usually harassed her. So when she tried reporting to the lady was like, that is impossible. Look at me and look at you. My man can never go to you. So the girl became pregnant, and instead the lady dropped her off to the village. And then the mom to the girl was like, but I gave you my daughter when she was still a virgin. So meaning what she's saying is right. She doesn't get out of the house. Meaning if it's your man who raped her. And the lady refused. But things took another turn that I cannot tell you about. Yes, next. So my future idea is, okay, this is what I can do personally because I do not have any authority in this country. Legal translation, legal literacy and translation. Since I know something little about the law and I know the jargons in the law, I can easily translate this law to these informal sector workers. For example, when I was still in year one, the word that really disturbed me was notwithstanding. But at least now I understand it. Notwithstanding. So how are you going to tell a person who stopped in primary three to read that paragraph with a word like notwithstanding? Are they going to even understand anything? I really doubt that. Documentary provision. There are those who can go to they can go to the labor officer to enforce their right, but they do not have evidence that they've been raped. They do not have evidence that they've not been paid. So I would really advise them to document everything and keep a chain of evidence that they'll use in case they want to enforce their rights. Restructure trade unions. I'm going to relate it with the legal literacy. The trade unions we have of the teachers, trade unions, medical practitioners, midwives. So we need trade unions to be restructured to cater for the informal workers like the hairdressers, the house helps, the border riders, the market vendors. Because through these trade unions is where it's easy to, collect them as a whole and to translate the legal jargons to them. Yes, so in conclusion, the economy runs on the sweat of informal sector workers like border riders, market vendors, and site laborers. If 80% of our workforce cannot access protection from our laws, that means our law is failing. Some of the principles of our laws. We have, in order to gauge whether our law is really working, we cannot ask someone who is in their office that knows that already I'm going to get my salary. I know where to report in case I have a dispute. You have to gauge them according to these people who know nothing. So yes, because this is only fair to all of us. Yes, that's it.
Thank you very much
Oh, wow.
for your presentation, Joy Roy. Is this mic on? I do hope you've given this presentation the same attention you gave the food, right? Because now you have to ask questions. And some of you have not asked a single question since we started presenting. But I see you. Christine, what's your question? So far you had all the presentations and you have nothing to ask. Hmm? Okay, anyone have a question? Lucas, since you haven't asked.
I would like to make maybe a comment towards the end with your recommendation of future ideas. You mentioned a statement that I want to disagree with. You say that I don't have so much power to make change. The idea of future ideas is you to suggest and put your future idea out there. If government was to do this, if regulatory bodies were to do this, I believe this is the best way forward. So while you are going back home or while you are even going through this presentation again, I need you to nullify that and say, this is what I would do if I was given and if I stood in that space of those different institutions, if I stood in a space of making policies and all that, because most of the times the reason why you carry out this research is to find out the gaps, the loopholes, and then suggest your best way foot forward. Because again, the government may not be doing it 100%. We may also have loopholes. So own it, be bold with it, and suggest it for your next audience. Yes, but overall, well done. I will allow others to ask their questions.
Anyone else? Are you guys not asking questions because you think it's half day? Hmm?
Thank you very much, Joy Roy. I think your topic is very necessary, especially for this time and day. This is something that has sparked a lot of controversy and conversation, both online, in both formal and the informal sectors. My comments are not about the substance of your presentation. And this is cross-cutting also for the other two fellows. It's really just about presentation. One, when you're presenting to old people like us, it's important to make sure that the language that you're using is language that will be understood by everyone in the room, right? And I know because we are like friends and yeah, we've been living our best lives these past 3 months, it's easy for us to forget that this is a formal presentation. But it's important that in communication, when you are given the opportunity to present, you keep reminding yourself that I may be besties with these guys, but the message needs to come across in the most understandable way. Maxwell behind me says professional, but I think for me, the biggest point is that everyone understands. Remember, you said a word, and then I turned to Gerald and asked him, haven't you learned a new word? And he genuinely, Ashley, hell, never mind. But what I mean is that there are certain things. I caught a point in your conversation where you caught yourself going to say jazz. Let me jazz you guys, and then you caught yourself. So it's important to remind yourself at the back of your mind that even when I'm comfortable with an audience, I need to maintain a certain level of professionalism. Apart from that, I think your style of presentation made a lot of sense for that topic of presentation. I don't know if that makes sense for the people who are this side, but it would be interesting for you to present informal sector and you're also very formal. So I like that that's what happened with you, that it was a bit less professional and uptight and a bit calm and a bit more relaxed. But yeah, for all the three of you, just for future presentations, let's make sure that our presentations are
professional to a certain extent. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for that. I really resonate with what you've said because I see the disadvantages that these people face. So you see, in the when we're providing ideas, it is always best to consider all stakeholders involved. So we've looked at the workers, but maybe from your assessment and how you've talked to these people, what advantages to what advantages to an employer, or what advantages would an employer get from let's say a legally empowered mate?
Well,
You get it? Because the premise of your argument is that these people are not they do not have the full knowledge of the law to help them advocate for their rights. So whereas we can advocate for mass awareness such that all these people know, it would be easier. Also look at the advantages that the employers get as through working with let's say legally empowered employees. Maybe what do you think about that?
I think actually that's a very nice thing because these acts actually give penalties for not following what is in the act. For example, the Occupational Health and Safety Act provides that all workplaces must be registered, and it actually gives a penalty for not doing this. So the employee should know that if I do not follow the law, and if my person does not know that he or she is supposed to get this from the law, I'll be penalized for that. And that would force them to observe the rights of their workers.
That's not the question. Yes, there are penalties for not observing the law on the employer's side. But what are the advantages of him having legally empowered employees?
The very first advantage would be working in harmony, which would lead to a better, service delivery. Because if your person knows that, oh, I'm going to get my salary on time, or my rights are going to be observed, it means this person is going to put in much more effort to deliver the work that they must, as per their contract.
Thank you, Joy.
It's using that one for the online audience.
Okay, all right.
We see volume.
Thank you, Joy, for the presentation. I just want to pick up your mind on something. You talked about, I think your presentation at some point demonstrated a level of exploitation in the informal sector, right? So what is your opinion about the minimum wage discussion in Uganda? I didn't see it in your presentation, so maybe I just want to pick your mind on that. Do you think it's a good thing? If it's a good thing, do you think it will help? How would it help, in your opinion, generally?
Yes, I think the minimum wage is a nice idea, because if at all there is a minimum wage, the tax burden that the rest of the people whose employment is actually contracted very well would reduce, and our country would gain more funds from taxing these people who are going to be given. I don't know how to describe it, but there wouldn't be more burden on the workers, and the taxman would also gain from this, because if at all if at all they earn, if at all a waiter's minimum wage is 500,000 shillings, this person would know that NSSF is taking this tax is going to take this. So we would all gain, the country would gain and the worker would gain.
Leave alone the government getting money, from taxes. I mean, in trying to help reduce exploitation.
Okay, yes. The worker would know that the expectation of the money they would have is what they're actually going to have. They would know that I'm not going to get below this amount of money.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Joy. Well done.
Thank you.
I think that was a good presentation. Mine is just a comment on using the word employee, employer. I think we need to be very careful on using those legal terms, even as we are giving our examples. Because I think as you see there, you're speaking about the informal sectors, you're talking about border riders, market vendors, site laborers. I don't know, are those employees or are those casual workers? Some of them are casual workers. Yeah. So let just caution to you to be more careful about the examples that you're giving to make sure that they fall within the right ambit of the law. But otherwise, well done.
Christine?
Um, Thank you, Joy, for the presentation. For me, I just have one thing to get your opinion or get your mind on. What would be your opinion about gig workers or influencers? Do you think they would fall under the informal sector that you're presenting before us, or they would fall under the already like the employees as per the Employment Act? I just want to get your mind around that.
Okay. According to some of my friends who are influencers, whenever they're going to work for a certain company, they're always given contracts to sign. They are given rules to I have one who is working with, let me not say it, but they are told you're not going, there is a non-compete clause whereby they're told that you're not going to do this or you're not going to work with a company that is competing with us in the same product. So I think they are employees. Was that the question?
I think so.
Yes, some of them.
Who is an employee?
An employee is one who is given work by their employer under, I forgot it, but they do have a service, a contract of service, actually.
What you understand the terms that are in a contract of service?
Yes.
What are some of the things that are in a contract of service? Or because you say that some of your influencer friends could be employees. So or some gig workers could be employees. So if you've been privy to any of those contracts, what about those contracts makes them seem like they are employment contracts?
They are under the control of those people who have given them the contracts. And they are told to work at a specific time. Actually, that means that they are under the control. Because if they tell them that you have to post at this time, you have to use this equipment, you have to wear a shirt that shows you are my employee or you're working with me, that really shows that they are being controlled. Something.
So in your opinion, an employee or a person who's working for another person is an employee under specifically the control test.
Yeah, it depends actually on the status.
Employment control, there's a multiple, and there's the what's the next one? I think, but there are three tests. Usually, each of the factors of each of those tests has to be reconciled for it to be considered. Because, for example, a plumber could come to BFL here and we tell him come from, actually not even a plumber. When we have any kind of work to do here, we'll tell the person come between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. When you come, use this kind of machinery because maybe this is the standard of work that we want. And when you come, dress formally, don't come dressed in a bikini, right? Does that make that person an employee?
No.
Why?
This is because this plumber could actually have their own company. I don't want to say company. That's okay. This plumber, I want to use the third test, which is actually forgotten. But this plumber could have forgotten it actually. I've forgotten.
Let's get out of the law. Let's
Yes.
use like now no more common sense. Imagine
you're an influencer yourself, right? You're working. One of us here has a what is it? It's a love camp. What is it? A love camp? I can't explain what it is. A person needs to explain their vision to you, but it's a company that an events. Let's say it's an events company that does proposals, breakups, takes you to maybe safaris, destinations. One of us here has that business. So imagine they come and they talk to you. They're like, Joy Roy, I like how you express yourself. You have a big audience. I'd like you to tell your audience about my business, because that's what influencer marketing is, right? They give you a contract and they're like, this is what you should talk about my business. These are the hours in which you should post. And you sign the contract. The person pays you at whatever point. Would you consider yourself an employee, or would you go to your parents and say, guys, I got employed by the company, this events company is called Jurassic Scenic. Would you say I got employed by Jurassic Scenic?
No, I wouldn't say.
Okay, why wouldn't you say it?
This is because I'm probably using my own equipment to do whatever I was told to do. Yes, they are controlling me, but they are not fully controlling me. They are not controlling the way I'm actually executing my work.
So the reason we're having this conversation is for you to understand the clear definition, the clear distinction between employment, gig work, which is also there. That one has not yet really been defined by the law, and contracting, which is independent contracting. It's a very strange, even at law school, it's one of those things where people fight about what it is not. But when you put yourself in a normal sense situation, you'll realize that, hey, actually I'm not an employee. Like, it's easy for you. So the next time you want to maybe make a presentation, or someone asks you, but just go to that place where you're thinking, okay, if I was this person and these are the things that were happening, what would I consider myself? I think it would be easier for you to understand it like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mine is not necessarily a question, but just thank you for the good work. I understood. I liked how you used examples of your personal life to relate to what you were saying, and I appreciate.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. All right. I think with that, we come to the end of this thing, to the end of the Barefoot Law Future Ideas Conference. Presentations. 3 hours ago, we had 3 fellows who had research questions, and now we have 3 fellows who have research questions, answers, thought provocation, and hopefully are more confident speaking in public. So, good job. Everyone asked a question, so that's very brilliant. And judging by the topics they presented, I do feel that the world is in good hands because of the young generation. They're very empathetic questions, and which is nice, especially like all of them are really very, very empathetic. The last presenter spoke about, like the informal workers and how they treat their maids at home, and they asked one of us, and she treats her maid well, right? And that trickles down from the organization. Like, if you come to work and your boss treats you a certain way, you'll go home and treat your maid a certain other way. So clearly, I hope you can all be examples to emulate, examples that can be emulated by the people who watch you, right? A conference like this is not just about, presenting ideas and leaving them here. Because the fact that you're all girls who have done this presentation is proof that some work was done before to kind of bring the girl child to the forefront, and you can see the results of it, right? So these presentations are not just people coming here, eating our breakfast and then going home, right? I hope you do continue with this and move it forward, right? The only thing I can say is you're now not young anymore, and everything you do here has actual significance, right? So if you're given another chance to do a presentation like this, it's now life and death. It's not like in school where if you don't know the answer, you fail the exam, right? Here, if you don't know the answer, someone could go to jail. Like if you're in front of a judge and they ask you what's the Employment Act, and then you're like, I forgot, they just say, come back next week, and your client goes to Luzira, right? So it's now serious. It's no longer jokes and games. So I hope you do take that into consideration. There's not much more I'm going to add on to that, but I'm going to invite someone who is not only a personal friend, but also the leader of the LS department to give her remarks. Miss Winnie.
Yes, okay, I believe in you a lot. So, okay, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I hope you're all well. Congratulations, fellows. I think let's clap for them. Ivanange, that's the best. Guys in the back, can you please clap for our fellows? Yeah, I think you guys have done very well. You started off, I believe you were 5 people. You are 5 fellows, and now you're only 3. So that speaks a lot about how the resilience that Gerald was talking about, that you have gone through the process, through all the hurdles, and you have reached this point. So very well done to you. Again, clap for yourselves. Yeah. For me, I don't really have many words, but what I'll say maybe is thank you to each and every one of you for sparing time to be here. Like Gerald said earlier, in the beginning, we were wondering if this fellowship should even go on. I believe we had a brief meeting where we were thinking, should we cancel it? Should we continue with it? Because a huge component of it is going into communities and talking to people. So we had to rethink what the fellowship would look like without that component because of Ebola. And we were thinking, now what do we do? How will it be beneficial for them? And I think that's when we brought in the mediation, like let them sit into the stations at the Barefoot Law boxes. And I'm happy that that came into one of the presentations now, big a research topic. So very well done for that. And in the Barefoot Law spirit, we continue with innovation. So we looked into mediations, and I think it has really benefited all of us, especially the critique. I think it's something for me personally that I think will benefit us going forward. To the fellows, please reduce this in writing. Have you already written your articles? Yeah? Yes, okay. Now go back, edit them, and please submit them so that we put them up or on our website. As well, I'm going to request that you shoot for us a short video on your experience on how the fellowship has been, because I think in the future, people are still going to come in wanting to know, how does a fellowship, how do you do this, how do you do that? And I'd like to hear your voices on that. To everyone else, thank you. LS team, thank you so much for supervising them. Clap for yourselves. For the management team, thank you. To Deno, I know you are sending, every week we are sending them data. Thank you to finance. I think IT, thank you everyone really. I think it has been a group effort, and I think it has been a very, very, very big success. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Winnie. I probably forgot to thank all of you, or maybe I did, but I want to thank you again because it's not easy to come and do the presentations. Everyone